Yep. Okay. All right. So we'll leave it there. And then the next question. It's not well, not a question, just a comment on one of our videos, and we get this all the time. It's just someone that says, "I'm forced to work every day in pain because I can't afford to be off work long enough to qualify. I'll work until I drop. It's a sad system."
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I really don't. But there is no provision. There's nothing that we can do to kick against that. There are every week that I've been in business, 22 years that I've been practicing, 35 years, in Social Security disability. But since I opened my practice, there really hasn't been a week that has passed that we haven't got a call from somebody who said, "I need you to take my case. I'm going to apply, but I don't think I can go through the process alone." And when did you last work? Oh, well, I'm still working, but I'm at the end of my rope. I'm going to have to quit. If I can make it in the next 2 months, it'll be a miracle. And we're not being heartless, but I can't file a claim for you while you are still gainfully employed. I cannot do that. You can't do it on your own. You have to be out of work. So, if you cut back your hours and you're under the limit, that might be something that we take, but probably not even then. To make a really good argument, I really need to see a clean break. What happened? Something must have happened to where it got so bad that you just can't work at all anymore. And there might be kind of a natural progression you would see in some chronic disease. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Musculoskeletal problems, orthopedic problems, those are the ones that we see that happening a lot. For example, somebody has a surgery 5 years ago and they go back to work. And they're able to work for a while, and then, for the last, year or so, you notice that their attendance is they're missing, 2 or 3 days a month, or they're leaving early, or they're arriving late. And then there is the clean break. I just can't do it anymore. Okay, well, that's indicative of disability. But asking me to make an application for you or take your case when you're gainfully employed, one, I won't, and two, it's because I can't. I can't say you're disabled if you're still gainfully employed. And do I like that system? No, I wish there was some kind of a provision, but I've never seen one even floated out there. And like I said, I've been doing this for 35 years. I've never seen a provision like, well, somebody's really bad off. They're still working and they're still gainfully employed, but they're really bad off, and let's go ahead and start processing a case in the event that they do have to quit or they get fired because their performance is so bad, because their conditions are so bad. There's no provision for that. There's nothing ever been floated that I've seen. It's basically always been you are unable to perform any type of work on a sustained basis. It's a condition that has lasted 12 months or is expected to last 12 months or result in death. That's always been the definition of disability. And it's really, again, it's impossible for me to file a claim on somebody who's gainfully employed. So I don't necessarily disagree with the person that left that comment, but there is no provision and there's nothing, there's no way around, Social Security law.
Yeah, because it's Social Security disability in particular is just referring to your ability to work. It's not a program to make accommodations while you're working. It's not a program to help you out while you're in pain and you're working full time. It is you're disabled if you are unable to work gainfully. That's how they define it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the hardest conversations, because we're not disagreeing. That's like, you're in horrible pain. I believe you. There's just nothing that we could do. You could have the best medical case in the entire country, and you could be the best representative in the entire country, and there's a 0% chance that we could win the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Early on in one of our really early podcasts, I talked about a woman, a lovely woman, who I worked with back when I was with disability, and she was a triple amputee. I mean, she's not a quadriplegic; she's the triplegic.
Mm-hmm.
And she worked, and she was a gem. She was like an asset to disability. She actually had knowledge way beyond most of us who work there. Was she disabled? And under the definition of Social Security disability, no. Why wasn't she disabled? Because she was gainfully employed. The day that she stopped working, she's disabled. Because her impairments are so severe that you would expect her to be unable to work. There it is. But as long as she was employed, even with those horrendous limitations, she's not disabled.
Yeah. You can't tell Social Security you're unable to work while you're still working. They're going to look at you and say,
yeah.
Repeat that back to me.
And then on the tail end, we see that a lot. We see the phone calls that we get a lot. But it's really on the tail end that we see this a lot. And we haven't had, I don't think, too much discussion on this on the podcast. But it really is a problem that, we see often. And that is, we're getting close to a hearing. My client's been denied twice. They got denied at the initial level. They got denied at the reconsideration level. We've applied for asked for a hearing, and we're getting close to a hearing. And all of a sudden, Social Security makes the entire case record open for us, along with earnings reports. By the way, when they make the file open to us early on, they don't give us earning reports. Try to figure out why, but they don't. But then at the hearing level, they do. They run earnings reports, and oftentimes we will scroll through that when we're doing the case review and say, okay, well, let's see what they found in the earnings report. And usually you see a new hire, and that's in the quarter that they were hired. And then you'll see, $8,000 in that quarter. And then the next quarter, $11,000 in that quarter. It's like, first thing we do, are you working? Well, yeah, I had to do something. Okay. All right. So when you say that, because we're going to go in front of a hearing, we've already scheduled the hearing. We're going to go there. When the judge asks you about these earnings, and you say, I had to do something, congratulations, you just lost your disability case. 100% of the time, you have lost your disability case. Because disability, Social Security disability, is not for folks who, they just had to go back to work, They're for people who can't go back to work. So if you say, I had to do something, we had bills, my spouse was laid off from their job, and bills are piling up, we had to eat. So if you really push yourself, you can work. Is that what you're testifying to, or is that what you're telling Social Security you can do? Because if you do, you're not disabled under the law. And it's heartless, it sounds callous, it sounds mean, but it's the truth. And, what my clients will find with me and my employees, we're going to tell you the truth, and sometimes it might sting, but it's going to save you a lot of pain in the long run. It's certainly going to save you a lot of time. If we tell you the truth, hey, you don't have a case. You told us that you weren't working, and then 2 months after, we signed, you didn't tell us that you went to work, and then we found out that you have been working. You never were out 12 months. You don't meet the definition of disability. There is no case. We don't need to go in front of a judge. We're going to withdraw your request for hearing, and we're done. We're not going to waste your time. You're not going to waste our time. We're not going to waste Social Security's time. It will save you a lot of pain. So it might sting when we tell you the truth, but we're going to shoot straight with you, and that's something that we see a lot. I had to do something. It's the worst thing ever you could tell Social Security, because what you're saying is, I'm not really disabled, but because I can do something if I really have to. If I have to feed my kids, if I have to make the car note, if I have to pay rent, I'll go to work. But that's not who the disability program's for. The disability program's for people who, even if they had to do all that kind of stuff, their body or their mind would not let them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds harsh, but like you said, it's going to sting, but it'll sting a lot less if they just let us know ahead of time.
Yeah,
it stings the worst when you don't learn about it until you're in the hearing with the client. And that goes with everything, earnings or any kind of surprises in the case. If you just let us know about it early, it's going to be a lot less of a problem.
Yeah. We've talked about that because your medical records, it's interesting. Most clients, and I guess I'm the same way, and you're probably the same way with your doctor. You get chatty with them, and what we what we'll see a lot of times is they won't tell us a word about any kind of marijuana use or alcohol use, and then you get their medical records later in the process, and it's like, you told us that you don't drink or you don't do. It looks like you had a bender for like 2 weeks. Yeah. Sometimes I get carried away. It shows that you've been through a rehab for crack. I mean, you told us that you never had a drug history. Oh yeah, well I guess I forgot that.
Yeah.
And we find in the medical records, because you tell your doctors that, and the judges see that, the Social Security Administration sees that. We have all the time in a hearing, we'll have a judge. He'll say to me, not to my client, to me, Mr. Groves, turn to Exhibit 3F, page 222. Oh, and then you see, claimant reports that his job is going well.
Yeah.
What? Or patient reports that his job is going well. What job we talking about? Well, I had to do something. And it's in your medical records. You told your doctor that your job's going well. You didn't tell us that you were working. You didn't tell Social Security you're working. Things are about to get really bad for you in a hearing.
Yeah.
And it would have been much less painful for you if you just told us up front, and we could have told Social Security up front.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Or the client tells us that they've never had any kind of substance abuse, and then the medical records show that they were telling their doctor about what a crazy night they just had.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, that's going to come up no matter what.
Yeah, it's going to be in your medical records. Any kind of earnings that you report to your doctors, jobs, because they'll ask. If you've ever been to a doctor, you know that one of the forms that you fill out at the front desk is who's your employer, what are you doing, and then when you get back in the room, they'll ask you, what kind of job, what kind of work have you done. A lot of times because they have to, determine whether they need to give you a note to, this person was in my office for this impairment. That's why they missed, that day of work. Which, by the way, those don't help us at all either. We need to know about chronicity, which is how long chronic conditions have lasted and what they're expected to limit you in doing.
If you have a question about your disability case, give us a call at 615-453-9151 Monday through Friday, or click the link in the description of this video.